Hi, I'm Steve O'Donnell. I am the founder of the Therapies for Inherited Neuropathies and a board member for the Charcot-Marie-Tooth Association. I am here in Salem, Oregon with my good friend Mike Studer, putting together a PT video for those affected with CMT. I, like many other people, fight the symptoms of Charcot-Marie-Tooth every day. With the help of Mike, a world-renowned PT expert, we have put together a program broken into 5 segments with different levels of people with CMT. This is just a starting point. It's up to you. It takes dedication, it takes commitment, it takes hard work. I struggle just like everyone else, but your body can endure more than you think it can. When you're tired, rest, but don't stop and keep going. Because if you continue to do this and you continue to work at it, your lives will change because it'll enable you to do more than you think you can do. The most important thing is you have to believe and not quit. Because I'm telling you from personal experience that the hard work will pay off. I hope this will inspire you to get moving.
Hi, I'm Mike Studer, physical therapist and neurologic clinical specialist. I'm proud to bring to you today a comprehensive fitness package for people with neuropathy. We're very pleased to bring to you this comprehensive fitness program that's going to cover flexibility, balance, strength, endurance, and function, specifically for people with neuropathy. I hope that you're going to find applications directly for you in here of all different levels of capacity. No matter what your current levels of ability are, you will be able to find a way to work on each one of these components of fitness. Some of the activities that we're going to demonstrate for you today will be a little bit out of your reach right now. They'll give you something to work toward, something for you to progress yourself with. Some of the things that we're going to demonstrate for you will be a little bit too easy for you. That's fine. I'm certain you know other people that have neuropathy that could benefit from this as well. So, watch the video, engage, find yourself, and challenge yourself. Today, you're going to be seeing this comprehensive package, but don't keep it a secret. Spread the word. Thanks for watching. Welcome to the first segment on flexibility. Scott and I are going to be demonstrating for you a couple of stretches addressing flexibility of the muscles from the knee down into the foot, and we're going to be showing you a low back stretch. Scott, are you ready? Okay, so we're going to be addressing his right leg now, and we're going to bring the foot back. And we're going to turn his foot very straight forward. This is a stretch that you can do for yourself to help you with tight calf muscles, tight Achilles tendon, and muscles of the foot. Now Scott, if you'll place both hands on your knee, and I want you to press down through your knee just like that. The important aspects of this stretch would be that you're applying your own pressure, so you can determine when you've pressed too much. Your foot needs to be straight forward. This stretch can be done with your shoes on or off, and it's great to do this right before you get up after sitting for a long period of time. The instructions that we would have for any of our stretches that you're going to see in the flexibility component would be to hold for about 40 to 60 seconds on them. Stretching as a whole can be beneficial to you done at the start of a day, at the very end of the day, and any other time of the day that you would like to, especially if you've been sitting or lying down for a long period of time. Scott's already held this for a minute. That's how we stretch the lower leg. You'll find if you're out walking for a long period of time or standing still that the muscles in the bottom of your foot are going to get tired. In an effort to try to establish greater flexibility and to relax those muscles once they've gotten too tense, it's good if you can take your shoe off and roll the bottom of your foot with some other hard surface. You could use a device that we're showing here called a tiger tail, a PVC pipe, or some other hard surface like a ball, a lacrosse ball or a baseball. Scott's going to demonstrate for you here how to roll the bottom of your foot to relax it for a period at your own discretion, maybe a minute or more at a time. Go ahead, Scott. It's okay to press pretty firmly into that device and really get some recovery from that. It's likely that you're going to find times that your low back is going to feel very stiff and sore, potentially even weak. Most likely you are using these muscles to strategize as a main component of your balance throughout the day. So you're trying to engage those muscles to hold your waistline still so you don't have a significant loss of balance while standing or walking. So it would be very typical for you to have extra tension in those muscles built up because you're using them more than another person might be. So what I'd like to demonstrate for you now is a method by which you can reduce the tension and increase the flexibility of your low back muscles. Scott's going to bend forward now, and he's going to try to keep his knees together and feet together so that we're really stretching the very lowest portion of his back, which is likely to become very tight and tense for you. Go ahead, Scott. What you'll notice with this is Scott's going to keep his back rounded, and as I mentioned, his knees together and feet together. You'll additionally notice now that he's actually going to be clasping his hands together so that he can pull his knees together with the force of his arms. Again, as we've instructed already, we'd like you to hold this stretch for about 40 to 60 seconds. An alternate stretch for your low back would include you pulling your knees up to your chest. Sometimes that's more convenient for you and may even feel like a more successful stretch to you. We're going to use the tiger tail again. Again, you could use a PVC pipe or another implement for this. Scott's going to be using this to pull his knees to his chest. Okay, Scott. So he's going to lie down, keep his knees together, ideally heads down, that's great, and he's using the force of his arms to draw his knees up to his chest, again addressing this flexibility here in the low back. As you've already heard, we'd like for you to hold the stretch for about 40 to 60 seconds. This can be an essential stretch to do the very last thing at night before you go to bed, so when you wake up, you don't actually feel that stiffness that you have been experiencing. Similar to your muscles in the lowest portion of your foot and the bottom of your foot, you're going to be using the muscles of your wrist and fingers a lot throughout the day. It'll be natural for those muscles in the hand and in the forearm to get tight, just like we just showed you with the muscles in the lower aspect of the leg. Anatomically, they're very similar, the lower arm and the lower leg. Steve's now going to show you a stretch to stretch the wrist and finger musculature using just two hands and no other device. Go ahead, Steve. So the critical portions of this stretch, the aspects you want to pay attention to, are the elbow being straight, one hand bringing the other one back so that the wrist is bent back and the fingers are bent back. This should be a comfortable stretch where you're feeling the muscles are stretched and you should not be experiencing pain with this. As with every other stretch we've talked about so far, we'd like for you to hold this about 40 to 60 seconds. Key times to introduce this stretch in your life would be after you've been keyboarding for some period of time, perhaps after you've been driving for a long period of time, or at the end of your day. You may find that you'll have a natural tendency toward a rounding of your mid-back, or people are telling you to stand up straighter, that your head is forward. We'd like to introduce a stretch for you now to help address that aspect of your body. I'm going to take this device. This is a foam roll that's actually cut in half. These can be purchased as a half foam roll. And I'm going to put that between Steve and a firm back chair. We'd like to align this straight up and down the spine. So essentially what we're trying to do with the foam roll is hold the spine forward and bring the rest of the musculature back. A stretch that you can do for yourself at home using just this foam roll or a very large bath towel that's rolled up with a firm chair can be done just like this several times per day. Steve's going to bring his hands back behind the chair, clasp his hands together, and he's going to begin to use the foam roll to push the spine forward and to bring the shoulders back. You'll feel this stretch across the front of the chest, and if you bring your head back and keep it slightly tipped down like this, you'll additionally feel a stretch in some of those muscles that get very tight and tense in the back of your neck. As you might have already guessed, I'm going to tell you to do this stretch for about 40 to 60 seconds. This is a great stretch to interrupt your workday or to end your day as well. Jamie's going to show us two alternate stretches for the calf muscles now. We're going to start with a short leg stretch like we did with Scott a few moments ago when he showed us a stretch in sitting. Okay, Jamie. So we're going to take her foot and point it straight at the wall, and then we're going to bring the knee up against the wall and hold it there. The essential portions of this stretch are that the foot is pointed straight forward, the heel is on the ground, and I want your leg resting up against the wall. So the muscles right here that we're trying to stretch are completely resting and shut off. You know this already. We're going to hold this stretch for 40 to 60 seconds. Now, an alternate stretch for a different set of the muscles in the calf would be to bring the leg back, keep the knee straight in this stretch, and again the critical components would be foot is straight forward, heel is on the floor, and the knee straight. It doesn't matter so much what you're going to do with the other foot. Keep your body supported with your hands on the wall so that the muscles you're trying to stretch can be relaxed. Now Jamie's going to show us a couple of stretches, two options for your hamstrings. That's the muscles in the back of your leg from the knee up to your hip. On the first stretch, Jamie's going to bend forward slightly at the waistline, and we'll turn her leg to point it outward a little bit. That's going to help her stretch the outside of the hamstrings. You'll hold that stretch separately for 40 to 60 seconds. You may feel that you've got more tightness in the inside of the hamstrings. In that case, you would want to turn the foot also inward. Again, the critical components here are body is bent forward a little bit, knee is straight, and then whichever direction or both feels like you are getting a stretch or benefit from this movement. You'll note in both of them, we like to have Jamie's foot somewhat angled up like this. That'll accentuate the stretch. Again, holding for 40 to 60 seconds would be indicated. Now, I'd like to show you an alternate stretch for the hamstrings. Jamie's going to show us how to do that. You can either do it on a bed, up against a wall, or on the floor. Jamie, go ahead. You'll notice the essential components remain the same here. Now, we want to have Jamie's knee straight. We want to have her foot, particularly the heel, up against the wall, and then you'll watch as she pulls her foot back and points it up. You're going to perceive a little bit better stretch when you create that motion at the ankle as well. Now, there is another nice stretch that can be had with the opposite leg while you're in this position. Jamie's showing that to us now. She's going to scoot over just a little bit to her left and drop her left leg off the edge. And each one of you will feel a different level of stretch depending on the amount that you bend your knee. Jamie's going to pull her foot back just a little bit, and you'll perceive a stretch right up here in the front of the thigh, perhaps even in the front of the hip right here. Scott's going to demonstrate a couple of different tasks for walking balance now. On this aspect, you'll see Scott intentionally bend at the knees and stay bent throughout the walk for some strength and coordination in the act of walking balance. Go ahead, Scott. Now on the way back, Scott's going to stand upright and try to keep his balance while he's walking backwards. That's good. This could be done in a hallway at home where you have also the protection of walls nearby or someone to walk with you. Jamie is going to demonstrate 4 separate walking balance activities now. She's going to start off by walking only on her heels. Go ahead, Jamie. For the second walking balance activity, Jamie is going to try to stay up on her toes, never coming down to touch her heels. Go ahead, Jamie. For the third walking balance exercise, Jamie is going to walk in tightrope or tandem walk with one foot directly in front of the other. Go ahead, Jamie. For the fourth of our walking balance exercises, Jamie's going to try to walk and rotate her head side to side. Go ahead, Jamie. Steve and I are going to introduce to you a very important aspect of walking balance. Something that we talk about in terms of walking is the fact that it's a motor memory, something that your brain really doesn't have to concentrate on, but it's got stored in the brain. Even when you have neuropathy, your brain still stores the task of walking. One of the best things that you can do is to keep your walk very automatic by distracting your brain away from thinking directly about the walk. One of the things Steve likes to do when he's trying to work on walking automaticity is actually count opposite or every other letter of the alphabet that keeps his brain occupied so his walk can be done automatically. You can do many different things to improve yourself in dual tasking. You can pull something out of your purse or out of your wallet. You can be texting or cleaning your glasses. You can be working with a pack of cards. And that's one thing that Steve and I are going to be doing now. In any way you engage in a dual task manner, you are intentionally trying to pull attention away from walking so that your walking can be done more automatically. Are you ready, Steve?
I am.
I'll flash the cards to him, and then Steve's job is to actually name what is the card by suit and face value. Okay, go ahead.
7 of spades, 2 of clubs, Jack of hearts, King of spades, 4 of spades.
When the accuracy of your walking balance becomes very important, because perhaps you have a very narrow walkway, or there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, or a lot of individuals just generally moving around you, perhaps even your own pets, one thing that you don't want to do is concentrate on every single step. One thing that Steve likes to do that works for him extremely well, and he did earlier today to travel out here in the airport, is to actually occupy his mind in such a concentrated manner that he can't think about his walking at all. So, as we walk this time, you'll hear Steve say every other letter of the alphabet, intentionally trying to think about or keep silent one of the letters in the middle. Are you ready, Steve?
I am.
Okay.
A, C, E. Generally, the first couple steps you take after you've been standing a while are hard to take until you get into a rhythm of walking. But if you do every other letter of the alphabet, particularly when you're in a tight spot, it generally learns to help. So I'll start off by going A, C, E, G, I.
Scott's going to show us another aspect of balance, working on his sense of balance in motion now. Okay, Scott, go ahead and sit down. Now on the way up, he's going to have his eyes open. Go ahead. Now he's going to try to close his eyes and sit down slowly. Now we'll do another repetition of the same thing. Eyes open on the way up, and eyes closed on the way down slowly. Good. Let's try one more of those and see how well you can control it. Eyes open on the way up, and eyes closed, sitting down slowly on the way down. Great job. Steve's going to demonstrate something that we call agility. Putting your feet exactly where you want them in a confined space. Sometimes agility can require a time constraint as well. What we're going to do is actually a test that we use in physical therapy called the 4-square step test. Steve's going to use it as an exercise now. Go ahead, Steve. You see, having to place your feet right where you need them takes agility, which is a dynamic form of balance. Steve's going to now show us another higher level of dynamic balance. As we showed you with Scott earlier, having him do the sitting to standing and having his eyes closed on the way down, we're adding the element of a cushioned surface underneath his feet. Steve and I know that this is extremely important to work on the actual sense of balance right now, forcing your brain to be able to pick up sensory cues when you don't have any contact with your feet on the ground. Go ahead, Steve. He's done 2 of them with his eyes open, and now he's going to transition to eyes closed. That's absolutely fabulous. One of the most important things that you need to be aware of about this is that we're actually retraining Steve's brain to pick up sensory cues from some other portion of his body other than looking for cues from his feet that aren't giving him good information. Great job. An additional aspect of balance, as we do in human life, is carrying something in our arms. Now, Steve's going to hold a 15-pound weight in each one of his hands as he does the next task. Okay, Steve, go ahead and stand up. He's going to keep his eyes open to start off with here and show us that he can keep his balance on a cushioned surface while curling 15-pound weights. Now he's going to try to do that with his eyes closed. That's fabulous. Again, balance should be challenging and therapeutic. It should be engaging you. It's important to understand that balance can be progressed up or down in difficulty in many different ways. As we've already demonstrated, you can have your head in motion when Jamie was walking earlier. You can be walking on just your ankles or maybe even up on your heels. Now we want to show you another way to progress balance that can be done in any expression of balance that we've done, whether it be sitting to standing or just trying to stand still. Jamie's going to show us the 4-stage balance test, and you can use this as something that you're incorporating into your balance efforts. Okay, Jamie, let's see stage 1 with feet together. Standing here, we can make this more or less difficult with her eyes closed or open. Or her head rotating side to side. The second stage in the 4 stages would be what we call semi-tandem. Feet still together, but one of them is slightly nudged ahead of the other. That's stage 2. When you're in this position, the rear leg is typically the most dominant leg, the one you're relying on. Jamie, go ahead and show us stage 3 there if you would. Perfect. So now she's standing with her feet lined up, tightrope or tandem. That's stage 3. This is more difficult. Again, the rear leg is the one that's emphasized here. Again, we could make this more difficult by closing her eyes, or having her head turned side to side. Finally, we'll show you stage 4 balance. That's just standing on one leg. Again, this could be made more difficult with eyes closed. Could be made more difficult still then with your head turning side to side. And you can combine the two of those as well. That's perfect. Remember, this is exactly what we want to see. Balance activities, for them to be therapeutic and meaningful for you, need to be challenging. Speaking of challenging, Jamie's going to show you another incorporation of that. Now, Jamie's going to bring in a resistance cord. This could be done with hand weights or a resistance cord or a TheraBand. Now, she's going to go right into stage 3, feet lined up, and step on the cord in the middle. Go ahead, Jamie, I'll let you demonstrate a few arm exercises while you're holding still. So now we're combining strength and balance a little bit here too. She could do arm curls, she could do what we call flies, and really this is only limited by your imagination. Remember, she could add in head rotation or eyes closed with this as well. Staging balance into the personalized, most perfect level of difficulty for you is what's critical. We're going to carry on with the theme of strength combined with balance now. Scott's going to demonstrate trying to stand up with arms holding 10-pound weights. Go ahead, Scott. Great, and then sit back down with control. Let's do that one more time. Great. Now Scott's going to show us arm strength with feet on a firm surface and feet apart, eyes open. Go ahead. This is challenging his arm strength and his core and his sense of balance, all three together right now. As we continue our emphasis on strength, you'll see Scott is going to try to stand up from a relatively high surface on the first repetition using his hands. Then later we're going to lower the surface down a little bit. There's two different ways to get this done. If you're at home and you don't have a surface that raises and lowers, remember, we can have you sit up on something underneath your bottom on top of the chair, or if we want to lower the surface, we can put something in underneath your feet. For now, Scott will demonstrate with the high-low mat. Go ahead. Now on this next repetition, he's going to try to get up without using his hands from a high surface. Go ahead. Beautiful. And right back down. Good. Now I'm going to lower the surface just a little bit, and you'll notice that takes more strength. Go ahead. Great job. Jamie and I are going to take you through the full progression now for balance to summarize the entire segment on balance. Remember, we talked about either doing balance work on a firm surface or on a cushion surface. Now, the type of cushion that Jamie's on right now is a higher density foam. That's a little bit more challenging than what I've got here. The more the foam surface actually compacts down, the closer your feet get to the ground. This keeps Jamie from being able to use reliable sensation that could be coming up through her feet. So, one progression is the difficulty of surface you're on, firm surface or cushion. We call it compliant surface also. Another progression we talked through was having your feet in different configurations, your base of support. So Jamie's got her feet apart. Then remember, we took her into a position with her feet together. We took her then into a position with her feet just somewhat nudged apart. And then later, which is what she's going to do now, we put her feet lined up. Additionally, we have the opportunity to make balance more or less difficult by closing eyes or opening them. Remember, Jamie also did head rotations side to side. So, you can bring your feet back apart, and remember one final element we did all in this very tight confined area was we added weights on. So Jamie could be doing this with weights as well. You could combine any aspect of the progression, changing your base of support, eyes open, closed, head rotation, cushion surface or foam, and Jamie's just going to show us once again with the foam surface now with her arms in motion against resistance. So I want to make certain you understand the full scope of everything that can be done just in one tight confined area for balance. Now we're going to work on a higher level aspect of dynamic balance up on the treadmill. Keeping in mind, some of what we're going to show you now can be done on level ground if you don't have access to a treadmill. One particular attribute of the treadmill that you can't get on the ground is that you have to keep up a constant walking speed. When you are doing a challenging balance activity on level ground, you can choose to slow down or to speed up. The treadmill's not quite as forgiving. It's going to be held at a constant speed. Now, when Steve and I first met just a few months ago, he was not able to walk on a treadmill without his hands on the railing. Go ahead, Steve. Now we're going to take him right up to a comfortable walking speed, and again, this is a way for you to be able to personalize your efforts by adjusting the treadmill speed. Steve's going to go to 1.6, and ultimately he'll take this up to about 2.1 miles an hour now. Recalling, this is the same gentleman that couldn't walk at 1 mile an hour with his hands off just a few months ago, but he went back home, worked on exactly what I asked him to work on. He's proficient with this. Now you see him walking here at 1.9 miles an hour, and he's working on keeping his walking quiet. He could be doing some of the dual tasking walking that we described earlier as well. Now we're going to show you a different attribute of walking. I don't want to shock you here, but this is also something that Steve could not do a few months ago. Steve, let's go down to 1 mile an hour, please. And Steve's going to change directions while the treadmill's still in motion. It'll be up to you to determine what's the appropriate speed, if this is safe for you to do or not. Steve's got this at 1 mile an hour. Go ahead and turn forward, Steve. A lot of times what we'll do when we're prescribing this is have an individual walk about 5 steps in each direction, then make a change. Now Steve's going to show us something that's called high intensity interval training, as we're moving and blending in the aspect of dynamic balance and endurance. Okay, Steve, let's take it up to 1.6. This is a pretty easy speed for Steve to do on the treadmill now. Now we're going to do a higher intensity interval for about 15 seconds. So Steve, we're going to go up, as we discussed, to 2.9, but only for 15 seconds. Now we're going to slow Steve back down to a comfortable speed at 1.6 for about 3 times that length, or for about 45 seconds. With high intensity interval training, you are doing exactly what's described. Higher intensity segments, small intervals, and you're going back and forth between an off or an easy cycle and a hard cycle, but you're never completely stopping. Steve, let's go back up to 2.9 again now, and we'll do that for 15 seconds. And then we'll take him back down to 1.6. Again, finding the values that are appropriate for you are important, but please understand, high intensity interval training is something that can be done as we're demonstrating here on the treadmill, and later on we'll show you how to do that on a bike as well. So here in some of the higher level applications, Steve's now showing you some effort to try to avoid a two-dimensional obstacle. Basically what I've done is drawn lines of chalk on the treadmill and Steve now has to avoid them whenever they come up. Now I'm going to show you one other high-level attribute of balance since we're here on the treadmill. Remember, this is the bonus segment again. Okay, now Steve will slow you back down to 1.6. We won't worry about the lines for this. What I want you to do is actually read the sentence aloud, but fill it in with an alternate answer. You're welcome to hold it or not.
Better than never, blood is thicker than water, cleanliness is next to tardiness, curiosity killed the cat, don't bite off more than you can chew.
Okay, now
feed you.
Fill it in with an answer that's not supposed to be the common phrase.
Don't count your chickens before they're born. Don't judge a book by its head. Don't put all your eggs in one bucket. Early bird catches the bird. Empty bags cannot stand by themselves. Good things come to those who want
That
them.
is fabulous. Steve, let's give a thumbs up to everybody out there. That's very good. Okay, we'll hit the stop button
I'm going
now.
to tell you right now, without a doubt, that's the walking while talking, not concentrating on where you're stepping.
Yeah.
I walked the best when I was reading that.
Yeah, and
Okay,
this...
So it's truth in what you're saying, all about the cognitive thinking. You can do it, and you're convincing yourself because you're afraid of falling or afraid of hurting yourself. You're convincing yourself that you can't do it, and that's just truth. That's testimony to what we've been talking about right there.
And this is actually something we just recently worked on. This is brand new to Steve. He's never seen this before. So the effort to try to take a common phrase and as it normally would be finished, don't judge a book by its cover, don't put all your eggs in one basket, Steve has to inhibit the frontal lobe of his brain and come up with an alternate ending, which takes a lot of concentration and pulls it off of his walking. I was very impressed with how you did there. Good job. Jamie's going to show us another attribute of balance that we've been talking about while she's on a treadmill. Keep in mind, this may be higher level than you can handle right now, but it doesn't mean it's not something that you couldn't strive for. Remember, the underpinning of what we're shooting for here is actually working on your sense of balance. Okay, Jamie's walking at 2.5 miles an hour and she's going to close her eyes. This requires a very refined sense of balance because she has no sight of balance available to her whatsoever. Now you'll see Jamie is working on, again, another hybrid combination of endurance and balance and strength in function. She's walking with 4-pound weights around her ankles. On a treadmill, you again have to keep your pace up with whatever the treadmill set up. You can't slow yourself up and speed yourself down. You can do this very activity out on level ground if you'd like. Keep in mind, the main attribute or emphasis here is by putting the weights around your ankles, you're asking your body to lift your feet and clear your feet completely from the ground. If you're having difficulty by sometimes scuffing your foot on the ground or catching your foot and tripping, you may want to incorporate this into your exercise regimen so you are more trained to lift your feet up and endure with that activity. This next demonstration is a test, but it's also an exercise. It's called the posterior anticipatory recovery test. All that means is they're going to be coming from a position that they're leaning back, posterior, anticipatory, they know they're going to be doing it, recovering back to forward, and we're going to test to see how well you can do. The nice thing about having a test in your exercise program is that we all like to see that we're getting better. And having that sense that you can handle a little bit more speed on the treadmill or that you can handle a heavier weight is all about what we call gamification, seeing that you're improving. So let's try this test, if you will, at home, something you can safely do as well. We're going to start off with Scott, who's going to try to stand as far away from the wall as he can and still come up from the wall under his own power. Now, Scott, if you will, go ahead and fold your arms across your chest and see if you can lift up from the wall. You're already about a foot away from the wall. That's pretty good. Let's see what you got. See if you can get up and stick that landing. Wow.
Just one more time.
One more time. And I love that. That's great. All right, great job. Now Scott's going to exit and he's going to give the stage up for Steve, who's going to try to one-up that. Steve's a good 14 inches away. That's a challenge. Okay, go ahead and put your back flat up against it and come up. He made it. Okay, and try one more time. That is fabulous. Both of those are impressive scores, gentlemen. Let's see what Jamie's got. Now, it should be also well stated that the taller you are, the farther you can actually stand away from the wall. Those two scores blew my mind though. Let's see what Jamie's got. Keep in mind, she's a little bit shorter than these two gentlemen. Go ahead. Jamie's standing probably about 22 inches away from the wall. Go ahead and try that again. And then up again. Great. So imagine where we are emphasizing in the body on this exercise, at the core and at the front of the lower leg. Remember, especially in Charcot-Marie-Tooth, we're hitting two very important aspects of your body with the posterior anticipatory recovery test. Great job, team. Now, into the segment of strength, Scott's going to show us how to strengthen some of those problematic low back muscles. We've got Scott attached to a resistance cord here. This part can be done in any number of ways. Right now we're using the vector that's made by Kaizen, and we're going to have Scott try to lean back, pulling the resistance cables. Go ahead. And you can see he's getting some resistance and working in repetitions. Now, one way to instruct this would be to let the weight or the cables go down slowly and try to come back with a little bit of power. So now maybe on the next three, Scott will go forward slowly and just part of the range up to here. And now we'll go back with some power. And that's another way to get that done with some control. Now Scott's going to work on the front of his core. You might know those as your abdominal muscles. You'll watch him as he leans forward with some speed and then comes back slowly against the resistance. Great. This can be done at home using a resistance cable. We often set this up using an open door with the handles of the resistance cable also fastened to the door. Obviously, you're going to get a much higher level of resistance with something like this, and a much more high level quality and consistent resistance with a device like this as well. Now we're again showing you another attribute of strength. It should be acknowledged that we're also working simultaneously with balance on this, but this is primarily intended for and prescribed to Steve's strength. Steve's tied up to using a waistband at the resistance canister here. Go ahead and show us what you're going to do, Steve. Now he's doing that backwards to push in through his quadriceps and his calf muscles and to use his back. Steve, let's try it sideways now. He's going to use the side of his muscles at the hips as well as at the ankles. So this is good for the side of the ankle musculature and the side of the hip musculature. Again, to be balanced with this, you would need to do this going both directions. So let's try a couple facing the other direction now, Steve. Even though you might think you're balancing it by walking out to the left and coming back to the right, they're totally different exercises. And then finally, Steve's going to turn away from the canister and try this facing away, where he's going to have to use the back of his hip muscles, the front of his lower leg muscles, and his abdominal muscles. So again, you can see he's handling this well. Steve just started working on this a few months ago and has something like this fashioned for himself at home. That's great. Nice job, Steve. Jamie's going to demonstrate another attribute of functional strength training. She's got the resistance canister tied to her here, and as you can notice, she's actually wearing a harness and up high on her body. That's very important. She's sitting in a chair, and she's going to work on sit to stand with resistance. Go ahead, Jamie. And as you can see, Jamie's got to use her legs with some power on this, but she also is getting strength from her core musculature. Great job, Jamie. Jamie's going to show us how to use the bike as a strengthening device for one of the most important muscles in the body for a person with Charcot-Marie-Tooth, and that is the front of the shin or of the lower leg. Anatomically, we call that the tibialis anterior, and she's going to use that to lift her ankle up. Okay, so you'll notice she's going to pedal the bike backward now, and she's doing this with a bike that either has a cage, which holds your foot to the pedal, or even ideally, something where you're wearing a shoe that clips into the pedal. Notice the emphasis where Jamie's pulling her foot up when the pedal is at the bottom portion of the stroke. Just like that. Jamie's going to show us two other attributes of endurance now that can be applied on the bike. I want to make very clear that we're using this concept of high intensity interval training on the bike just like we did with Steve on the treadmill. Those are not the only two ways to use high-intensity interval training, though. You can do that with weightlifting, with swimming, and many other forms of exercise. Okay, now Jamie's going to go ahead and pedal briskly for about 15 seconds in a row. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now she's going to intentionally pedal slowly. This would be an off cycle of the high intensity interval training. That's one other application. Remember, Steve did that on the treadmill. You can do that in swimming or with weights, as I've said. You want to have about a 3-to-1 ratio where the hard effort is coming for 15, 20, 30 seconds, and then the easy cycle comes 3 times that amount. Jamie, go ahead. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The other aspect of high intensity interval training that's important to understand is that Jamie could do this on the bike while she takes the resistance up. So the high intensity could be in terms of resistance or in pedal speed. Go ahead, Jamie. So now she's pedaling against heavy resistance for 15 seconds. And then she can take that back off as well. The third application for this is that Jamie could actually be doing standing and climbing on the bike for 15 seconds as well. She'll do that as the final expression of what we can do on the bike for endurance training. Then in the off cycle, she would sit back down at a lower resistance. Great job, Jamie. Part of functional strengthening is making a lifestyle change. We're here in the stairwell where we choose to actually make that opportunity work for us. Steve's actually going to use the stairwell whenever he can going up into a building. Granted, he's going to use the handrail, but he's got a strength opportunity right here in front of him.
I like to be able to utilize the stairs. Whatever building I go into, it's just another way to keep your body moving. It's sort of when I pull into a parking lot at any store I go to, I park as far away from the building as I can so it'll keep me moving. The most important thing is you don't know what you don't know, and you got to keep your body moving, because I think that you can really, I've found myself do more than you really think you can.
So we've gone through a lot today. We've filmed things on land, on bicycles, on foam cushions, with resistance cords, with weights, with eyes open and eyes closed. We've done a lot, but one thing we intentionally left out of the video, just out of respect for your time, is things that can be done in the pool. So Steve's doing some very innovative programming in the pool based on a prescription that I gave him a few months ago. Steve, can you elaborate on that?
So we spend a lot of time in the pool swimming. We try to break it up doing all strokes, but what Mike has instilled in me, and friends of mine are doing this too, is we are running in the pool, and then we're running with our eyes closed, and then we're running backwards with our eyes closed. We're doing karaoke with our eyes closed. We're doing lunges, and we're doing lunges with our eyes closed, and it builds confidence. So the pool has been just dynamite just for the exercise, the flexibility. I believe it also takes down the inflammation in your body. But these exercises build confidence in our everyday lives.
Yeah, that's great. And what's very integral in what Steve said is that the pool environment is very forgiving, and so he can work on challenging himself to a level that he really can't do on land, because what we like to say in the pool environment, you could splash, but you won't crash. So thank you for elaborating on that, Steve. And what we've learned today is that there are 5 different attributes of fitness. There's flexibility, there's balance, there's strength, and there's endurance, as well as function. And we've addressed all 5 of those through 3 real people that have Charcot-Marie-Tooth. We've met Scott, Steve, and Jamie, and hopefully you've been able to find yourself and identify yourself with one of these 3 individuals in all of the different types of fitness attributes you've given throughout watching the video.
Success takes determination. It takes hard work, it takes time, it takes effort. What Mike and his team has put together today has been a game changer for me, and it could be a life changer for a lot of people. You just got to realize that you can endure more than you think you can. And when you feel tired and you want to quit, rest, but don't ever quit. Mike, I can't thank you enough for doing what you did, you and your team, for people, not just for me, but for everybody with Charcot-Marie-Tooth. Thanks very much, buddy.
My pleasure.
All right.